Welcome, we're continuing building our complete app, and in the last video we just went through the structure of the library section with CSS data, the individual components and the demo site. So if we go into demo site and go to index.html and open that up, we will actually see that this nav bar and the scroll to top, there we see it down there, these are actually web components, and the way I made those is if we go into navbar, for example nav.js, basically I just copied and pasted from here, menu bar, put it into the shadow root, inner HTML, scrolling down, copied all of that, and then basically on the connected callback follow the script that they had on the page, and this now produces this responsive mobile app menu screen. So if we just bring that down, we can see. So that's the way that we can just make UI components. And for the back to top, basically it was the same. It was basically just copying some script from somewhere. Now this is an example of actually putting the style sheet within the web component in style section. It's not recommended, but some ways it's the only way to do certain things. But we've seen the CSS module class before where we imported it. So what we might do is this in future is put this as we saw when we went into the CSS section on the CSS import, how we basically imported some CSS. We could possibly put all of the classes in there, but not that link statement. So as we've seen with the back to the top, this is workable. It affects performance, but that's just the way it is. But in your application you may have that across the board in your site, but if it's a separate component for third-party use, obviously they would then need to put in their fonts in their web page. And we've just done this on the connected callback. We're just putting in the scripts that were in this particular file on W3 Schools, and here it is, how to scroll to top. So for our first example, we can see that these UI components down here are basically, we click on that, go back to top, we can do that. So that's how we can use it just for plain UI, and it can be a good way to encapsulate and reuse HTML blocks of code. So if we go into the home, we've seen this before, but this is using the show post. We've got post 106, we're changing it to 109. We've seen this one in action before. And if we look though actually at the page itself, we'll see that an awful lot's going on here. And one of the things that on this page I've done is if we go to index, I'm using IndexedDB here to load all the categories into our IndexedDB. And we looked at that in the demo, but if we go now to application, we can see that in IndexedDB on the home page, I've decided to load all the posts here. Now that's just for future use. So this is one way that one can preload information, and one could also use a kind of script to say when DOM content loaded or at a certain point after the page is loaded for performance points of use. But this, as this is at the end of the scripts, it renders at the end. And we can see we've got our different categories for all our blog posts. So that is the index page. The next page that we'll go to is the categories, and again this is all variations on a theme. We see the back to top button here, and if we go back to this one, if we look at category here, we can see, well, we've there, for example, we can see the navigation bar and we can see the back to top at the bottom. It's using this one here in O3 NDC show all posts. And basically all we're doing is we're getting a range of posts. We're actually getting from this endpoint a range of categories. And what you can do is you can change it so that you use a local data source if you want. For example, category 5, category 6, that's the same information. And if we go back to show posts, for example, in here, what I'm actually doing is I am actually using a local set. This is using data show post ID for the IDs that we're using, which are going to be either 83 or 86, 83 or 88. They're just basically a copy and paste of the output in the browser when I have gone to that URL. So if we click on this, if we run this, open, let's go into the index post, open live server, go F12, close that down, open this up. Let's just if we go into console, we can see that basically I'm using the link here. This is the show post date. If I actually come into this one here, and let's go into, sorry, I'm darting about to show post. If I go Udemy, Control-C, come up here and actually click on the link. And 83, for example, what I did is I just copied and pasted all of this. I've got a Chrome extension that basically formats my JSON nicely here, JSON formatter. So you can either use a local data set, or you can use your own endpoints and obviously change out what you're rendering here through your result set. So going back to the app, the next one is dynamic. And I think what we'll do is, this has been about 7 or 8 minutes. We'll move this into the next lesson. But in this one, we'll see how we can dynamically load scripts in for performance. And we'll do that in the next lesson.